ipakita ang tunay na estado ng ating bansa. Ilahad ang mga pinakabagong balita at pangyayari sa ating bayan. Ipaalam sa taong bayan ang katotohanan at ipaliwanag ang mga hakbang na ginagawa ng pamahalaan upang manatiling payapa at maiangat ang pamumuhay ng bawat Pilipino. Mula sa Pangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas, Mayor Rodrigo Duterte. Ito ang Talk to the People.
I'd like to begin the meeting tonight with the presentation of the successful operation of the security units of the country against drugs. Kasi dyan ako talaga takot para sa babayan ko, and at the same time, galit ako sa kanila. Hindi ako nagbibiro kung sinasabi ko na natatakot ako sa anong mangyari ng bayan ko pag hindi maghinto talaga itong pasok ng droga. It would require more than just double of what we are doing now to cope up with the widespread importation or the presence of whatever, baka dito rin the drugs in the country. But I would like to reassure again those who are into it that do not destroy my country because I will kill you. It's no joke coming from me since I was mayor. Di talaga ako papayag kailanman. So, we have this operation number 1, the buy-bust operation in Imos, Cavite. Topacio State Phase 8, Barangay Magdalo. Mahayang Pag-asa, Imos, Cavite. The time was 9:15, September 9, 2021. The operating units, the PDEA and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, together with the Bureau of Customs. Hindi ko na kailangan enumerate yan. Trabaho nila yan. So, we have the next slide. Arrested was Lani Micoleta Barbante, 45 years old, Imos, Cavite. Alwin Micoleta Mejia, 47, Imos, Cavite. Approximately 48 kilograms of shabu worth 331.2 million. Yung pasok. Okay, tignan mo yung droga. Ito yung aabot sa mga bunganga ng mga ilong ng mga anak natin. This will be the drugs that would make them crazy permanently, making them inutil citizens of the country. Kung magbarami yan, puro inutil na yung Pilipino, saan na ang Pilipinas? Saan mo ilagay ang Pilipinas? Kaya yan sinasabi ko, where would you place my country if I allow you to do your thing? And if I listen to the human rights about violations, alam mo, sabi ko sa inyo, they are armed, all of them. At makita mo ito. Next slide. Yun ang mga droga. Mga walang kaluluwa to eh. At saka gusto talaga rin mamatay ang mga putang ina nila. Then, operation number 2, bypass operation in Bacoor, Cavite. Springfield Executive 1, Molino. Ganon. Operating units, well, the security forces of the country. NICA, pati Bureau of Customs, PDEA. Killed were Basir Bangon, Pangguga, 59 years old, Cagayan de Oro City. Cagayan de Oro is just about a few kilometers from Marawi. A top-level drug personality with direct contact with the Chinese syndicate. His main market was the areas of Visayas and Mindanao. Then Calino Untanan with Tampogao, Dasmariñas, Cavite. Kita mo yung 1 kilo of suspected shabu subject to bypass worth 600. 180 kilograms of suspected shabu possession worth 1.24 billion. Bilyones na kasi ngayon eh. You would notice that it is seldom mentioned that the drugs are worth about so many millions. Billions na ngayon ang pinag-uusapan. So, millions ang tatamaan ito. During the time of Shabu, just the last accurate count, there were about 1,400,000 Filipinos already na may tama na sa Shabu. And all are useless human beings. Much less, lalo na citizen of this country. So, next slide. Ayan. Pag-aralan ninyo yung mabuti. Kayong mga gusto talaga. Do not give me that shit about human rights. Yan ang gusto ninyo. Ayan ang ibigay ko sa inyo. I have nothing but contempt for this. Well, good evening, everyone, mga kababayan ko. I would have want to spare you, especially in front of your family, yung mga nangamatay, pero I have to do it to impress upon everybody the severity of the consequence kung magsalubong tayo. Now, tonight we will update the nation on several issues confronting our nation, including our latest COVID-19 pandemic response and our rescue and relief efforts on the affected areas of Typhoon Julina and Typhoon Kiko. Let's talk first of the COVID-19 cases. Today, DOH reported 17,964 new COVID-19 cases, bringing the total number of active cases to 175,470. The positivity rate is at 28%. There are 168 reported deaths today. Marami yan. The total number of deaths is now sa Pilipinas namatay 34,899 or 1.6 of the total cases. Alam mo, if you compare this with the other nations, kunin natin doon sa number of population, medyo mababa tayo sa ratio. DOH has reported 9,067 new recoveries, around 90% or 1,969,401 million already recovered since last year. To inform the nation about the typhoons Julina and Kiko at ano ang nangyari. I'd call on Secretary Halad to give us the report.
Good evening, Mr. President. I will now present the situation update in connection with Typhoon Julina and Typhoon Kiko. Next slide, please. Shown, Mr. President, are the three weather systems being monitored by PAGASA. First is, of course, Tropical Storm Julina, which is now outside of the Philippine area of responsibility after crossing eastern Visayas, Mimaropa, and Calabarzon and towards the western Philippine Sea. The focus now of our monitoring is Typhoon Kiko, which as of 5 o'clock this afternoon was at 190 kilometers east of Cagayan with a strength of about 215 kilometers per hour near its center and gustiness of about 265 kilometers per hour. There is another weather system northeast of Typhoon Kiko, and that is a low pressure area in this location. Next slide. Now first on the updates on Typhoon Julina. It was first detected as a low pressure area east of Surigao at 2 o'clock in the morning of last Monday, September 6. And that same day, that same morning, it developed into a tropical depression and intensified further that same day to a typhoon. So several stages of intensification in just one day. It made landfalls, 7 landfalls in all in eastern Visayas, Mimaropa, and Calabarzon from 6 September to 8 September. And as of last night, it exited the Philippine area of responsibility and was then a severe tropical storm. Next slide. There were reports of incident and flooding, 160 flooded areas, all in all, in Region 3, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Region 5, Region 6, and Region 7, and Region 8. But most of this already subsided. There were other 42 incidents monitored, like soil erosion, landslides, uprooting of trees, and 2 maritime incidents, or capsizing of 2 boats. A total of 11,062 individuals were displaced. This covers the preemptive evacuation carried out by the local government units in Calabarzon, Mimaropa, and Region 8, as well as the forced evacuations that followed during the onslaught of Typhoon Julina. We received also report of, next slide please, 14 dead, 7 missing, and 20 injured. For the deaths, 1 died due to landslide incident in Laurel, Batangas. Other deaths are still for validation, but most of these were fishermen who were out into the sea during the onslaught of Typhoon Julina. On damages, a total of, next slide please, 6,423 houses were damaged. Most of these, however, are only partially damaged. There are 22 damaged infrastructures amounting to around 30 million pesos, and damages to agriculture about 256 million pesos. Next slide. Our preparedness. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council Operations Center convened the different agencies and offices and conducted a series of meetings for our pre-disaster risk assessment. And we also issued 35 emergency alert and warning messages through the telcos Smart and Globe. All national line agencies monitored and were placed on standby in the event of escalation of responses. There were also preparedness measures carried out by the Regional Disaster Risk Reduction Management Councils of Region 8, Mimaropa, Calabarzon, NCR, Region 5, and Central Zone. The local government units likewise carried out their pre-disaster risk assessment meetings, conducted preemptive evacuations and rescue operations, and they were also in the forefront in catering to the needs of affected populations or in the management of evacuation centers. These are some of the pictures during the disaster responses in connection with Typhoon Julina. As most of the evacuees have gone back to their respective homes by now, the focus is on the search and rescue for the 7 missing individuals, the provision of support to those still in evacuation centers, replenishment of relief goods to LGUs by DSWD, and clearing operations. So that is our update in connection with Typhoon Julina, Mr. President, and on to the updates on Typhoon Kiko. Presently, Typhoon Kiko is now moving northwestwards from its position east of Tuguegarao. Shown is the timelines describing the development of Kiko from its entry into the Philippine Area of Responsibility on September 7. And as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, based on the Tropical Cyclone Bulletin number 15 of Pagasa, Typhoon Kiko was located at 190 kilometers east of Tuguegarao City, Cagayan. Its maximum sustained winds is at 215 kilometers per hour, which is 10 kilometers per hour short of the super typhoon category. But its gustiness is at 265 kilometers per hour, which is already at a super typhoon category. It is moving at 15 kilometers per hour to the direction of the northwest. And at 6:20 this afternoon, Pagasa raised Tropical Cyclone Warning Signal number 4 for Babuyan Island, Cagayan, which is second to the highest of our typhoon signal. And at 8:20 this evening, an orange rainfall heavy alert or intense rain was released over Cagayan province. Based on the predictive analytics by DSWD, using Pagasa's data on rainfall, around 746,000 individuals are projected to be affected by Typhoon Kiko in the next 72 hours. These areas include also areas in Mindanao which will experience heavy rains due to Typhoon Kiko. Next slide, please. Next slide. Shown are our preparedness for Typhoon Kiko. The meetings we conducted at the Operation Center of the NDRMC, the release of alerts and advisories, and the preparedness measures of the national line national line agencies. We also conducted emergency meeting this afternoon, focusing on the updates from Region 2, which is the region nearest to the center of the track of Typhoon Kiko. Next slide. This is our monitoring of the dam situation, and Magat Dam, which contributed to the flooding last year in Cagayan Valley, is still at 4 meters below its spilling level. Bonton Bridge in Tuguegarao City likewise is at 2.5 meters level. Its alarm level is at 8 meters and critical level is 11 meters. So that means that it looks like we have no risk of flooding in Cagayan River due to Typhoon Kiko. The other dam levels are also as shown. Ambuklao in Benguet is also below its spilling level. Should it spill water, it will flow into Binga Dam, which is likewise still at below spilling level. But should it spill, its water will feed into the San Roque Dam in Pangasinan, which is still 17 meters below its spilling level. Next slide, please. Shown are the preparedness measures of the Office of Civil Defense as well as their regional disaster risk reduction management councils. Region 2, through this WD, readied the 20,000 plus family food packs and started today the carrying out of preemptive evacuations in Cagayan and Isabela. And likewise, prepositioned heavy equipment and teams for clearing and availability of PPEs in evacuation centers. The other regions, Region 1, Region 3, and Cordillera, their preparation is more on readiness of logistics, since there's still no need for carrying out preemptive evacuation in their areas. So, next slide, please. So that ends my presentation, Mr. President, on updates on the situation in connection with Typhoon Julina and Typhoon Kiko. Thank you.
Thank you, General Halad. At this point, let's talk about education. And I'd like to call on Secretary Briones to report on DepEd and what's happening in our department.
Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening, fellow members of the Cabinet as well as the Filipino people. We want to give a summary of our 5-year gains in the fight for accessible and quality education. During the past 5 years, Mr. President, we have continually addressed the challenge of quality in basic education. We are now concentrating on quality since we were successful in increasing enrollment levels. So it's not quantity alone, but quality as well. Under our program of Sulong Edukalidad, we reviewed the curriculum where before we required more than 15,000 learning competencies, and which were reduced to 5,000 in the light of the pandemic, Mr. President. We all know that where there are good students, well-performing learners, there should be good teachers as well. There will be good teachers and we will have good learners. And so we are transforming the National Educators Academy of the Philippines. We are also continuously consulting with the broad range of stakeholders, which we call the Education Forum, which gives us advice on many things relative to education. The gains, next please. The gains in education, Mr. President, were made possible because of the very high level of support and commitment that your administration has given to education right from the beginning. When you assumed in 2016, Mr. President, you increased our budget by 31% from 2015, which is very, very significant. And at present, our budget stands at 595 billion pesos, which constitutes a significant portion of our national budget as provided for by the Constitution. Next, please. What is important, Mr. President, is how we utilize the budget and the funds which are made available to us. In the year 2015, just before you assumed office, Mr. President, we had indebted 88% budget utilization. At present, for the year 2020, your budget utilization rate is 96%. This means that we have, as much as possible, utilized the funds that you have given to us through the national budget from 88 to 96%. Next, please. Mr. President, insofar as the enrollment is concerned, as I said, we first concentrated on quantity. We recorded an 8.45% increase in enrollment from 24.92 million learners to 27 million learners in 2019. And despite the pandemic, Mr. President, we managed an enrollment of 26.23 million students for this year, which is 97% of pre-pandemic. And considering all the different varieties of viruses which has plagued our system, including education, it's quite significant that our enrollment levels are still high. Next, please. We also have invested the funds that you have given to us through our budget in improving the learning environment. We have built, with funds which you provided, 150,149 new classrooms compared to the period of 2010 to 2016 of 118,000. We have built technical and vocational laboratories of 12,786 compared to 147 which were built during the same period of 2010 and 2016. We have repaired and rehabilitated classrooms, 103,548, vis-a-vis the previous period of 35,804. And since we believe and we protect our heritage schools, we have rebuilt with the funds that you have given us 588 Gabaldon heritage schools. These are the very old schools, perhaps during your mother's time. From 53 the previous administration to 588 Gabaldon schools restored. And we have also benefited 2.1 million average of beneficiaries. Only recently, with the donation of the Department of Finance, of gadgets and tablets, which were turned over to us by the Bureau of Customs, we distributed these to the what we call the last mile schools, schools which have been nearly forgotten and were left behind. Next, please. We are also reaching more out of school young people. You have always opened your heart to learners who don't have the opportunity to study and to pursue education. And so our enrollment, for example, Mr. President, for the equivalent of 5 years compared to the previous 5 years is 57% higher than past administrations. in spite of all the challenges of pandemics and viruses and various controversies. And so we produced graduates from one region, for example, where we piloted senior high school for the alternative learning systems. This is for students who don't have the opportunity to go to regular school because they are either working or they don't have the capacity to support themselves. Next, please. On the matter of nourishment and nutrition, we all know the direct relationship between good nutrition and good learning, effective learning for our children. So we have an annual average of 2,191,442 malnourished and undernourished learner beneficiaries benefiting from school-based feeding programs. Right now, we have projects with agencies, for example, like the Department of Agriculture, to provide milk and bread for learners who are malnourished and undernourished. Our ideal and our ambition, our dream, Mr. President, that we don't distinguish between and among malnourished and undernourished. All children should be fed when they go to school, as they are fed also in other countries. Next, please. We have distributed 55,151 ICT. This is internet packages, which were delivered for the past 5 years. And as I have said, we immediately distributed donations from the Department of Finance and other partners for advancing our journey towards the digital age. Personally, Mr. President, I would like to lessen our dependence on materials which are made out of paper, because we trigger floods, we require the killing of forests, etc., etc. And usually these materials are more expensive compared to ICT. And we are grateful. Department of Finance has donated twice already customs. And we are hoping that they will catch more smugglers for the benefit of our learners. And have also been negotiating with our multilateral partners like Asian Development Bank for the provision, Mr. President, of radios and other means of teaching and learning for our students, because there are places where you don't have connectivity, and we use radios, and they're very interesting for our children. We also have improved the ratio. We are always told time and again, Mr. President, that you have classes with 70 or 80 kids and one teacher. This is not true anymore. In 2016, when you started, we brought down the number of students per classroom to 32 per class. And in 2020, we brought down the number to 28 learners per class, instead of the usual dramatics about 60 to 70 or 80 kids per classroom. Most important, Mr. President, next please, in our fight for access and quality, next please, for our teachers, we consider them our heroes. And I have shown this chart before. Please, next chart, please. This one. It's very interesting, Mr. President. When you came in 2016, a teacher one who is at the lowest level of teaching earned 19,077. At this time, basic salary to Mr. President, he or she is earning 23,877 under your administration, Mr. President. By the time you end your administration in 2022, the lowest salary rate of a teacher, lowest grade, is 25,439, and not the pittance which has also been described by various sources. So by the end of your term, first we started the highest level for a teacher, Mr. President. Perhaps your mother was a master teacher, but she was even higher than this. When you came in, the salary of the highest teacher grade was 43,000. Now, the salary of the highest teacher grade is 60,901. Very, very much higher than my salary when I was a full professor at the University of the Philippines and an emeritus professor, 60,000. And by 2022, when you finish your term, your highest teacher, this is master teacher 4, will be at 62,449 basic salary, Mr. President. Now, in addition to the basic salaries which you have generously provided, because all of us love our teachers, you have other allowances which our teachers earn, like the personal economic relief allowance. This is 2,000 pesos, Mr. President. The clothing allowance of 6,000 pesos. Before, Mr. President, we gave uniforms ready-made or cloth to be made into uniforms. Now we give them money. They have a choice. We give them 6,000. It's their choice. They can have new uniforms made, or they can make do with their old uniforms, but they are not held accountable for that money. Whatever they do with their clothing allowance, that is their choice, and that is 6,000 pesos. Of course, they have the mid-year bonus, which is allotted to all government employees. This is 1 month basic pay. Then you have this special hardship allowance for those who are in more difficult circumstances. This is 25% of the annual basic salary, 1/4. Then you have the honoraria for teaching overload. We have to emphasize this because perhaps the public needs more information on the benefits that you, under your administration, has given to teachers, which is a maximum of 25% of basic salary. I wish cabinet members will also get 25% of their basic salary when they stay up to 12 midnight attending IATF meetings. And then, most wonderful of all, and Senator Bong has been instrumental here, is the World Teachers Day incentive, which is 1,000 pesos per teacher. Every year we celebrate Global Teachers Day. The entire world pays tribute to the teacher. But ours is different because we give money, we give cash awards to our teachers, all of them. And while 1,000 seems small, you signed and you approved 910 million for this particular benefit alone for the teacher. A very huge chunk of our budget. And that is how you have always loved teachers. And then we have the 1 month basic pay of the employee as well, plus the usual representation allowance and transportation allowance. And then you have the step, this is called the step increment due to length of service. The longer you stay in government or in the Department of Education, for every 3 years of continuous service, you are promoted 1 step. And this is part of the 3-page list of benefits. Then you have the productivity enhancement incentive, which is which we call the performance bonus, and we have debates about this, of course. This is 5,000 per year, Mr. President. And then the cash gift of 5,000 again, Mr. President. And then for those who specialize in teaching science and mathematics, they have free salary step increments if they specialize in mathematics and science, because we are moving into the digital age. Furthermore, Mr. President, and it's a very long list, I'm sorry to bore you, it's a long list of money for our teachers. Loyalty cash incentive, 1,000 pesos for every year of service. Cash allowance subject to special provisions of the GAA, 5,000 pesos per year. Transportation and teaching aid allowance for the alternative learning teachers, those who teach for our ALS program, which you have generously supported, 3,000 and 5,000 pesos, Mr. President. So we have 3 pages of benefits which our teachers right now are enjoying. And then we also have been proposing additional teaching positions for the teachers. Before, Mr. President, the highest level of teaching is for a teacher is teacher 3, and then the next would already be master teacher 1, 2, 3, 4. We are proposing not only from teacher 3, we are proposing teacher 4, 5, 6, 7. So there will be more spaces for the teachers to move up from, with the corresponding proposed also increase in compensation. And for master teacher, we're also proposing an additional rank. Kasi ngayon, it's only up to master teacher. For right now, a master teacher gets 60,901 pesos. As I said, nearly double my salary as a full professor in UP. We are proposing the addition of another rank of master teacher 5 at 68,450 basic salary for the teacher. And this is how your administration has all these years, these 5 years, given attention and recognized the services of our teachers. Lastly, Mr. President, we are initiating a number of new projects. I always say, Mr. President, that I am the oldest in the Department of Education, but I am the youngest in terms of ideas and programs in the department. And we have established what I describe as the Education Futures Program, wherein we try to discern, hindi naman parang Madam Auring, what society will be, what it will need, so that education can respond. Like, for example, the possibilities now of robot teachers, which are being studied in other countries, brain implants, machines which are so much better than humans, and how can humans remain human in the light of all these fascinating developments. So we are not looking at next year's election, Mr. President, but perhaps 30 years from now, 40 years from now, what will society be like? How will we prepare our learners? How will we prepare them mentally, aside from memorizing multiplication tables, Mr. President, as well as correcting their grammar? So this is one program which we are very interested in. And of course, another new addition, and Senator Bong is here with me, of course, is the establishment of the National Academy of Sports, which we are hoping to open also within this year, also together with the formal opening of classes. So bago itong dalawa, National Academy of Sports and the Education Futures program. So, Mr. President, these are just a few of the things that we have achieved with your support, with your inspiration, and of course, with your financial generosity. And we look forward to attaining these goals by the time your term ends. Thank you, Mr. President.
Salamat, ma'am. I'd like to call on Professor De Vera if he has something to add to especially the CHED.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a PowerPoint presentation. Maiksi lang, maiksi. Can you please flash it? Okay, I'd just like to give an update, Mr. President, on the reopening of classes in higher education. Next slide, please. Out of the close to 2,000 universities and colleges, about one-third has already opened in August, Mr. President. So nagsimula na yung semestre para sa ibang malalaking eskwelahan. The others are opening this September and until October. So we have successfully opened the school year 2021-2022 all over the country. Next slide, please. Dahil sa pagpirma nyo ng free higher ed, 1.6 million students are now not paying tuition and miscellaneous fees anymore. So, libre na ang tuition and miscellaneous fees ng 1.6 million na mga estudyante sa lagpas 200 public universities all over the country. The enrollment has increased from academic year 2019-2020 to 2020-2021. So malinaw po, Mr. President, ang mensahe na pwede ka nang hindi lamang mangarap, kundi makamit ang iyong pangarap sa kolehiyo at university. We also are funding about 435,000 students in public and private universities through the tertiary education subsidy. Yung mga nag-aaral sa public ay nakakakuha ng funds, Mr. President. Naging lifeline ito sa panahon ng COVID. Kasi ang enrollment sa public universities has not declined during COVID. Dahil libre ang tuition at yung 40,000 na nakukuha nila ay naging ayuda na pangbuhay ng kanilang pamilya ngayong panahon ng COVID. So, kung hindi po napirmahan yung RA 10931, Mr. President, mas grabe ang magiging epekto sa panahon ng COVID. Madaming hindi makakapag-aral dahil walang pang-tuition at walang pang-tustos. Kasama pa dito ang 210,000 na tulong-dunong beneficiaries. Next slide, please. Maliban sa RA 10931, we are also subsidizing now about 91,000 additional students in public and private universities. Through merit scholarships, ito yung mga scholarship para sa matatilinong mga estudyante. At dahil sa Bayanihan 2, binigyan ang CHED ng 300 million pesos para bawasan ng tigli 5,000 yung utang ng mga estudyante sa private schools, para mabawasan yung kanilang utang, at natulungan natin ng 60,000 na mga estudyante for this year in 2020. Next slide, please. Meron ho kaming hinahanda na 2 MOA. Ito po i-discuss ko na kay ES Medialdea. Yung una ay yung CHED, yung CHED DND DILG Scholarship. Nakausap ko rin po si Secretary Ed Anyo tungkol dito. Meron na kaming MOA na ready ng pirmahan para bigyan ng stipend yung mga anak na mga AFP at PNP personnel who are killed in action against insurgents. Namatay ho itong programang ito sa AFP, naubusan yata ng pera. At sa PNP ay walang programang ganito dati. So we have a MOA ready for discussion and signing para matulungan natin yung anak ng mga killed in action against insurgents. Kasama po ito dun sa utos nyo several cabinet meetings ago dun sa ating anti-insurgency program. Yung isa pa po na hinahanda namin, may MOA na rin. Next slide, please. ay yung balik-loob scholarship. Ito ho ay sa Armed Forces para doon sa mga anak naman ng mga rebel returnees. Ito po ay bahagi ng utos ni A.S. Bingbong in one of the cabinet meetings to work on this program. Ito po ay siguro mag-uusap na lang kami ni Secretary Ed kung paano at kailan ito pwedeng simulan. So pinapalawak po natin yung mga matutulong ang mga bata para sila makapagpatuloy mag-aral. Next slide, please. Nireport na po ni Secretary Bebot Bello ito, yung tabang OFW. Binigyan natin ng 30,000 pesos ang anak ng mga OFW na bumalik sa Pilipinas at hindi makaalis. Ang natulungan natin sa ngayon ay 16,719 dependents na. Meron pa ho tayong natitirang mga 500 million para dito para pwede nating i-cover itong current school year. So in total, ang matutulungan natin ay pinakakunti yung 16, kung sila ulit bibigyan pa ng 1 taon, matutulungan natin ito. So binibigyan natin sila ng 30,000 pesos na grant. At baka sakali naman, kung bumuti yung ekonomiya at sila'y makaalis na, baka hindi na nila kailanganin ito sa susunod na taon. So meron ho tayong 1 billion na allocation dyan. Sabi nyo po, doon sa isang programa ay dadagdagan nyo ng 3 billion itong programang ito. Ito po yung report ni Sec Bebot. Galing po ang pondo sa CHED, pero ang implementasyon ay pinagtutulungan namin ang DOLE. Next slide, please. Nagpapasalamat kami, Mr. President, na noong January, pinayagan nyo na yung limited face-to-face classes sa medicine and allied health sciences. I would like to report that we have inspected and authorized, kasama ko po si Sec Charlie do sa unang inspection noon, we have inspected and authorized 118 schools to hold limited face-to-face classes, covering about 247 programs. Next slide, please. Ito yung covered sa ngayon: medicine, nursing, physical therapy, midwifery, medtech, speech language, dentistry, hanggang radiologic technology. Ito yung mga programang nag-face-to-face na yung mga selected schools, mga third year and fourth year students ito, dahil kailangan nila yung hands-on experience para sila ay maging bihasa sa kanilang ginagawa. Next slide, please. There are now a total of 13,000 students who are authorized to hold limited face-to-face classes in MGCQ areas and GCQ areas where there are COVID-19 hospitals, and more than 1,000 faculty members who are authorized to hold face-to-face classes. Next slide, please. Last April 15, nagpapasalamat po kami sa IATF at inakyat yung category ng mga estudyante at faculty na maging essential health workers sila. So napabakunahan na natin ang close to 10,000 students doing face-to-face and more than 1,000 faculty members doing face-to-face classes. So we have put an additional safety level doon sa mag-face-to-face. Kaya po ang resulta, next slide please. Ang resulta, Mr. President, from January until last month, ang infection level sa mga estudyante ng face-to-face is less than 1%. It's only 0.3%. Sa faculty, 1.4% ang infection level. Lahat ito ay mild at asymptomatic. Wala pong na-ospital at walang namatay na bata o faculty sa limited face-to-face classes. Next slide, please. Kaya ang hiling, Mr. President, ay baka pwedeng i-expand na natin ito sa ibang programa na kailangan din talaga ng limited face-to-face. Dinala ko na po sa IATF at inindoso na nila sa inyo ang pag-expand sa 3 main areas: engineering, HRM, at maritime programs. Ito lang po muna ang uunahin natin kasi dito kailangan talaga ng skills, lalo na sa engineering. Sa maritime program naman po, sumulat na yung mga international maritime companies sa Philippine schools na kung hindi papayagan yung mga estudyanteng sumakay ng barko, mag-shipboard, ibibigay po nila yung slot sa ibang bansa. So meron pong urgency na payagan natin sila kasi kung hindi ko maka-shipboard, hindi maka-train sa barko yung ating mga estudyante, sila po hindi makakakuha ng, hindi makakagraduate at hindi po makakasakay sa mga barko sa labas. So ito po ay in-endorse na po ng IATF 3 weeks ago at pinadala ko na po ang sulat sa inyo. Ligtas naman po, mahigpit ang ating guidelines. 24 pages na guidelines na ginawa ng CHED at DOH. Wala pa pong namamatay, wala pang na-hospital. Isisiguruhin ho namin na kung papayagan nyo itong mga ito, ganun din po kababa yung infection level. Finally, Mr. President, sa pagtutulungan namin ni Secretary Vince at instruction ni ES Medialdea, tapos na po yung guidelines ng CHED at saka Department of Health para payagan yung mga estudyante sa 4th year and 5th year medicine and nursing at yung mga graduate na hindi pa nakakatapos ng licensure exam, napapayagan silang maging vaccinator para po dumami yung ating mga magbabakuna. Tapos na po yung guidelines, isusumitin namin sa IATF next week. Kung okay ho sa IATF, baka pwede nang i-implement ito pagkatapos. Nakausap po natin lahat ng schools, sila isusuporta sa kanilang mga estudyante para mapabilis po natin yung pagbakuna. Maraming salamat, Mr. President.
I'd like to ask you your permission to allow me to say something about the procurement of the masks, face shields, and personal protective equipment for healthcare workers. Ako ba, well, I made this guarantee that these transactions are legal, that there is no wrongdoing, there is no crime involved here, that I am willing to resign kung may corruption. Yan ang binigay ko, and I will do it at kung may makita sila. You know, in March of last year, we imposed strict quarantine protocols and lockdowns in Luzon and as part of a response in the COVID-19 pandemic. By first week of April, we have had an increasing number of cases of deaths, which included our health workers and doctors. Back then, the situation was becoming dire as we also had very limited supplies of personal protective equipment or PPEs in our hospitals. In fact, kulang na kulang ang supply. And ang capacity natin at that time in dealing with the virus was just almost, not really nil, but almost, let me find inadequate. Well, at that time that no country was really prepared, just like any other in a pandemic, you are racing against time to save lives, quick to decisions and actions, and had to be made to be able to do this. Congress granted executive department special powers under Bayanihan 1. And to the exercise of these powers, we procured a total of 288,000 PPEs in April 2020 from China through PSDBM and were transported to the country via C-130, PAL, and Cebu Pacific flights. Alam mo, ako na mismo, sabi ko nga, as I have stated for the nth time, I was also the one in the hurry. As a matter of fact, the number one person who was really insistent na ngayon, itong ongoing projects ng Congress, sabi naman Commission of Audit, si Michael Aguinaldo himself clarified that the findings of the auditing team that attended the Department of Budget and Management Procurement Service pertain to the inventory management and not to the alleged overpricing of the medical supplies of the fight against COVID-19. The findings of the auditing that handles PSDBM really pertain more to the inventory management and not overpricing, Michael said during the Senate inquiry. To further accelerate the positioning of the PPS and critical supplies to strategic areas, BRP Bacolod declaring a total of 200,000 PPS departed from China on May 1, 2020, bound for Davao City. The PPEs are full piece sets including the now subject face mask and face shields, many of which are allocated for all government hospitals and other hospitals with COVID-19 patients and laboratories. Again, these are meant to our healthcare workers and not for the general public. Hindi ito pambigay sa mga in general kung sino-sino lang. As we replenish our stocks of mid-May 2020, we were able to distribute PPEs to a total of 699 hospitals, irrespective of whether government or private hospital. In the meantime, nag-usap kami I had a chance to have a talk here with Senator Soto. Binabanggit kasi niya, sabi niya, I agree that inconvenient masyado itong mask. Is there a way that we can do away with it? Sabi ko, ako, gusto ko. I said, because it is very inconvenient and it really does not make you in proper equality, whatever, if there is something hanging in front of your face. Nung sinabi ko, pabor ako, pero nung right after that, as prudence would dictate, I consulted the medical sector, yung mga scientists. And they said that, totoo, it is not really an answer-all solution. But it can prevent, at least with the mask, a little of the average protection. And when they mentioned to me the new variant data entering the country, I got scared. So, binalik ko yung there was no order yet, but I never really went to order the doing away with the mask. Ngayon, binalik ko yan. Sabi ko with the coming of COVID-19, sabi ko, if it can add a little more protection, so mas mabuti na lang niya, it's a little bit convenience, but it could mean life and death for a person, for a citizen of this country. So, binalik ko. So, ako na yung may order na ibalik, na magsuot talaga. But what was the order of the, na sa DOH nung nag-meeting tayo? Sabi ko, ibalik ko kasi, I said, taking the cue from the medical people, sabi nila, it can increase the average of protection. So, yun lang ang ito namang sabi ni Aguinaldo, dalawa yun eh. Itong Congress, itong maldito talaga to. They started first with, there are two issues. They started with the unspent billions. Tapos sabi nila, wala namang nakuha kasi unspent ka, nandyan. But they are asking si Duque kung bakit hanggang ngayon hindi pa nagastos. I mean, you do not run the Department of Health by legislation. Yun ang problema sa kanila. So, wala yun. Kasi huwag mong pasinin yan. If you have a program for the remaining amounts in your department, do it. Do not listen to Congress, they're all bullshit. Wala pang lang yan, pang istorbo lang yung yawa na yan. Dito naman sa kabila, dito ko tinaya ang pangalan ko. Kasi tinanong ko talaga yung mga tao. The Commission on Audit, Chairman Aguinaldo himself clarified that the findings of the auditing team that handled the Department of Budget and Management Procurement Service pertain to the inventory management and not to the alleged overpricing of the medical supplies to fight against COVID. Bakit sila maggawa ng inventory na when the program is going on? I think they should let Secretary Duque finish his job, then conduct the inventory of what is left or what is missing, and that is the time that you make, the findings of the auditing that handled PSPM really pertain more to inventory management and not the overpricing. Aguinaldo said during the Senate inquiry on Tuesday. Dito ko nga tinaya eh. Dito ko sinabi na mag-resign ako kung merong corruption dyan. Ora mismo, bababa ako. Kuha, nagsabi na walang anomalya sa disbursement at delivery ng items because it was accounted for. Ano ba ang inyong gusto mailisit? Ang agenda ng Blue Ribbon Committee, motu proprio investigation. The senators keep looking for the technical and financial requirements of Farmally. Wala ka na pakialam dyan. Farmally is really a Farmally corporation sa Singapore. Doon yung nag-provide. Ito si Michael Yang, whom I knew for the last 20 years na negosyante ng Davao. Siya yung inutusan ko initially noong I made contacts with the Chinese. Eh, siyempre may negosyo, nakikisali. Negosyante. Ano ba magawa mo? Na ito na ngayon, ang ginaano nila, wala silang makita, yung Parmali. Yung Parmali, what is clear is that there was this contract, there was delivery, kompleto lahat, specifications, as to quality, quantity, and all. Tapos, after delivery, bago pa nagbayad ang Pilipinas. So, ito mong anong gusto na, ito pa rin si Drilon, he might want to explain his relationship with Janet Lim Napoles, since you want to discuss corruption and the use of people's money. And I can still remember that Miss Napoles tampered with billions of pesos. And how did you end up partying in Heritage Park in Taguig with Napoles and all people? Could you call that a perfect coincidence? You claim that you have only met Napoles 10 times, but the photos show your closeness. And is it true that Napoles contributed 5 million to your campaign? At ikaw pa rin ang kasama mo sa Senado ang nagsabi na may binigay ay kapalit. So what did you give in return? Since you have proclaimed yourself and your friends there in the Senate as anti-corruption czars, please enlighten Mr. Senator. Can you explain to the Filipinos your connection with former Mayor Jed Mabilog and General Garbo? Aren't they both connected in the illegal drug trade? Yung mga tao ninyo noon sa panahon ninyo. And since we are talking about Iloilo, can you also tell us who owns the biggest mall in Iloilo City and who brokered the sale of the old Iloilo City Airport to Megaworld? We are just curious, Mr. Senator. Ito naman si Gordon. Itong si Gordon, malalim itong away namin. Talaga mag-aaway kami nitong buang na ito. He claims that the Red Cross is totally independent of an adjunct independent from the government, national or local. Tapos sabi niya, because I'm looking for the annual reports in the local sa Red Cross, creating the Red Cross. The Red Cross must submit to the President an annual report. Since then, wala akong natanggap. 6 na taon na ako, Mr. Senator Gordon. Nasaan na ang report? And why would you say now that the government of the Republic of the Philippines cannot conduct an audit sa Red Cross because it is totally independent? If it is totally independent, you are correct. But it is not totally independent because you have been receiving aid, financial aid, from the Republic of the Philippines. At ikaga nga, nagkukuha ka pa dyan sa PCSO ng pera. Now, any money belonging to the government of the Republic of the Philippines given to an agency, whatever be the nature, if you're operating here and you receive the money and spend it, you are accountable to the government, and therefore an audit is in order. So in the coming days, I will write you a letter to open up your records, because I will also request Aguinaldo, and I am sure he knows his business, that there is money in Red Cross belonging to the government which he has to look into. Ngayon, kung ayaw mo, mapipilitan akong totally disassociate with you. I will stop government, the national government and all, from having transaction with you in any manner. Wala akong pakialam, hindi ako magbigay ng pera sa iyo. Saka, as far as I am concerned, Red Cross does not exist. And you can create a controversy there or a crisis. I do not mind because I said I am on the right track. Either you submit on auditing procedure or we quarrel. Pag mag-quarrel, do your worst because I will do mine. Mahirap yung sabihin mo na at saka Mr. Senator Gordon, kilala mo ba ito si Glenn Tan ng Subic? Do you know him? Because he knows you very well. Well enough to talk about you. Kumusta ito si Gwendolyn Pang? That lady from Sulu na nag-join sa Red Cross. Pakisagot lang nito para maano tayo. At pwede ka rin magsagot sa akin. Ako pa ang magbigay ng lista sa iyo. Dito naman sa more on COVID vaccines. We are grateful to the outgoing United States Secretary of Affairs, John Law, as expressed optimism for stronger security alliance and cooperation between U.S. and the Philippines. On behalf of the grateful nation, maraming salamat. Do I understand that there's a new shipment from Secretary Galvez? Can you elaborate?
Yes, sir. There is a U.S. COVAX donation of more or less 5.5 million, and that's the initial, sir. Initially, the UNICEF has given us the number of 10, but they just committed 5.5 million for this September, and the others will be following up. And also the U.S. government, through our Secretary of Foreign Affairs, who is already in the U.S., and also Secretary Lorenzana, they have intimated our request for the possible acceleration of the different U.S. brand companies like Moderna and Pfizer. And the CEO of Moderna made a commitment that they will provide 5 million Moderna this coming September, and also Pfizer will also provide another 5 million.
Let me stress the point that we are doing well with our vaccination. But the fact is that there is a shortfall. Hindi natin mabigyan lahat sabay-sabay kasi kulang. I think we are short of about, how many was it, Sonny?
Mr. President, to achieve our goal of vaccinating the 100 million residents of the Philippines by the end of the year, between now and the end of the year, we need a delivery of around 9 million doses a week. That is what we need. A week, 9 million a week, so that we will be able to get a total of 195 million vaccine doses since March. And with all of that, we can vaccinate about 100 million people. So if you divide the balances by the number of weeks, we need around 9 million a week to be delivered by the pharmas. Now, I just want to emphasize, Mr. President, this has already been ordered, and there is already money set aside for this. What we are waiting for is the delivery. Now, as I said, we need 9 million a week. Unfortunately, for the first week of September, we only received about 3.5 million. So we have to catch up for the coming weeks. So again, we want to tell our citizens that as soon as the vaccines arrive, they are actually deployed and the people are inoculated. But again, the pharmaceutical companies have had some difficulty in making the deliveries, Mr. President.
Yeah, gusto ko lang ulit, itagalogin ko na lang. May pera tayo. Sabi nga ni Secretary Dominguez, we have the money ready. The fact is, we have placed the orders, but kulang talaga worldwide until now. So, nag-aagawan pa rin. Were it not for the good, ng Amerikano pati ang China who contributed the largest portion of our donated vaccines. Mahirapan tayo. Hindi natin sabihin, may naririnig kasi ako, sige, bakit nila bakuna ng bakuna? Gusto namin. And I even suggested to Secretary Garvels to send some to the provinces, especially cities in Visayas and Mindanao, which are hard hit by the pandemic. Kaya itong face shield hindi ko tinanggal. You have to continue using it. Mabutit na lang yan, I mean, a little amount of protection in addition to the mask, which will be provided by the face shield, mas makatulong ito. Kaysa tanggalin natin and you remove that premium of protection. Not really a complete protection, but the premium that it will provide by wearing the face shields. Yan ang baka ang sinabi nga ni Secretary Dominguez, well, maybe towards the end of the year or maybe early next year, first quarter, if we are able to get the vaccines, then we are on our road to recovery. At least by that time, a good number of the people would be vaccinated. Sa Invictin, ivermectin, originally para ito sa baboy, ngayon it graduated into a medicine or a chemical that it can provide protection against COVID-19. That is according to some sectors. And marami yan at mga doktor at marami rin yan. And in other countries, they have also embarked on these clinical studies, but the problem is it is not clear. Nobody has published a journal, a medical journal, which the doctors rely on, na magsasabi na all of these tests were conducted and the result is what is being laid down here. Wala pa. Everything is in quandary. Kanya-kanyang pero there is no actual definite finding na mapublish lang naman baski sa medical journals ng mga doktor na masabi natin na pwede na ito. So, I leave it really to the doctor-patient relationship. if the doctor believes in good faith that it can help, and the patient also believes in his heart that he will get well, we leave it up to you to decide. Kasi mahirap naman masisi na kung totoo talagang effective tapos pipigilan mo with the testimony bound plus yung mga maraming tao nagsabi na gumaling sila. So, for some people, it would be quite a good gamble to embark on. Pero ako, I am guided, since I am with government, I am a worker of government, I rely on the work and the narratives of government doctors. So, I am bound by what they say. Hindi masyado ako pwedeng magsalita nitong ivermectin. My suggestion is, doctor-patient na lang. If both doctor and patient believe that it can help, that it will produce result, then sa inyo na ho yan. I leave it up to your good, ninyo kung discernment kung tama ba. On the granular lockdown on GCQ with alert levels, last September 8, the Interagency Task Force for the Management and Emerging Infectious Diseases ito na nung sa resulta nito, yung bunganga mo hindi masyado bubuka. Emerging infectious diseases has deferred the implementation of general community quarantine with alert level system in the National Capital Region. Ako yung isa nagsabi, kulang ang guidelines. This to further refine the guidelines, ayan. I ask for a general public's continued understanding and patience on this matter. I know that many of you are raring to go to work and conduct your business already, but we have to make sure that we cover any contingency so that we may reduce the risk of infections. Frankly, I'd like to be honest with you. Kung ito lang, it does not involve death or yung serious physical illness. Kung pagka ito lang, it's a matter of being a cough syrup or a pill for a headache, a migraine maybe, hindi na ako makialam nito, hindi nga ako magsalita. But the problem is, buhay yan ang mahirap, and I would not want to be remembered as one who caused the death of so many. Kung maaari lang minus-minisan ko yung mamatay dito sa Pilipinas during my watch. Walang ganun pa rin. Mask, hugas, iwas, bakuna. May tama yung iba na we are pushing people really to go and get the bakuna, but in some places in the Philippines or a large portion of the country does not have the bakuna kasi kulang nga. Inuuna natin yung population density. Kasi kung mas maraming tao, mas dikit-dikit, mas marami ang hawaan. Ngayon, kung sa baryo, tag 1 kilometro kalayo yung bahay ninyo, And if you follow government admonitions, mas maganda. Kaya yung inuna natin, yung mga Cebu, Cagayan, Davao, maybe Bacolod, mataas, Manila. At itong Manila talaga ang pinaka. Itong Luzon. Ang may ibang lugar. Davao, marami rin tao. Density ng tao ang problema eh. Yung malapitan. So, whether you like it or not, whether you want to maintain the required distance, makita mo naman dyan sa TV kung pinapalabas sa hapon-hapon, nagtaano ang tao kasi marami. Simple, mas maraming tao talaga. So, yan ang hindi natin mapigilan. You still have, is there anything that you want to talk further?
Myself, sir.
Yes, ikaw yung we left with you doing the...
Thank you. Yes, Mr. President. Just two things. The first is about the financing for the vaccinations. As I mentioned, they are all in place already. And again, we're just waiting for the deliveries. So we are assured by Secretary Galvez and Secretary Dizon that as soon as the vaccines come, they are injected already right away. The second point I would like to make, Mr. President, is about this controversy on this investigation on the PPEs.
Yeah.
So far, I've been following the investigations, and so far, there does not seem to be an accusation of any violation of the law, or there's no accusation of overpricing, and there's no accusation of under-delivery, or accusation of misdelivery, or the product is not the right product. So I would suggest that those who are questioning this transaction come out with a program with a charge sheet to clear the air already. It's very important for the Filipino people to know if there was something anomalous that was done. So far, after I don't know how many 5 or 6 days of investigation, there is no accusation as far as I have listened to. So let's get on with it. So para maklaro sa lahat kung may masama talaga nangyari o wala. Thank you.
They're zeroing now on Michael Yang and Parmali. Alam mo, sabi mo, if there was an order and the order was delivered and the product was found to be as specified, with the specification ko, all right, then we pay. Ayaw ko kung anong pag hinahanap nitong why go into the bagay. We will not want to control them, but we would like also to just criticize them for, alam mo, wala kayong nakukuha dyan, you want a fishing expedition. So you might as well, ganito na lang ang laro natin. You find your fault in us, and we will find what's wrong with you. In the case of, I'll begin first with Senator Gordon. I'm sure that I will find plenty plenty of, basta plenty when we start with you, Senator Gordon.
Mr. President, Mr. President,
Yes.
going back to your mentioning of audit, all of us who are in government know what is the protocol, the proper procedure. A commission on audit submits an audit report with memoranda on whatever they believe are their findings. Then they sit down with the client agencies. All of you have gone through that. You sit down and clarify, and we answer in writing to the commission on audit on what their findings are. Usually these are documentary requirements. And then on that basis, they will say that, well, we are convinced, or maybe we are not convinced, and that is when they will issue the notice of disallowance, the audit disallowance, where specific persons are mentioned. But before that, the agency has the opportunity to answer. And also, the audit body is usually required, when it submits its final notice of disallowance, the answer of the agency, ina-attach nila yon. Kung halimbawa you are accused of this or that, and then the agency answers, i-attach yan. And they can say whether it is okay or not. So there is a protocol involved before the commission on audit makes its final judgment. Secondly, also on your observation about private agencies being subject to public audit. In my long life, I was involved in the preparation of the General Auditing Code as Secretary to the Commission on Audit. And there is a provision there which says that where public interest, where public funds are involved, then the Commission on Audit has the right to audit a private entity, to trace whether it is beneficial to the people or not. And I believe that provision is still there. I hope it is still there. And that is very important because public interest is at stake here. Just those 2 points, Mr. President.
Yes, I don't know if I heard that. I may be wrong, but I kind of read somewhere that Aguinaldo, of course, says that supporting the claim of Senator Gordon that it is not subject to an audit because it is really a private entity.
Private entities, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
I may be wrong. I said at this point. Let me just also be fair. I may not have heard it, but maybe I was just dreaming. It's going to be a long legal battle if he refuses, because COA is an independent body. Nobody would want also to tinker with another lahat. How now to not really force, but persuade COA to conduct the investigation, audit, because if he refuses, that would be a dereliction of duty. Then I said this will involve a long legal battle, but I am prepared to go into it and demand really the accountability of Senator Gordon and all of them in the Red Cross to account for the money that was given by the government of the Philippines for the longest time. And what is really very telling is that I have yet to get a copy of the report which they should be furnishing me every end of the year. Wala silang binigay, wala namang sinabi kung ano. At least we might be able to glean somewhere there about the contribution of the Republic of the Philippines. We are prepared for this battle with itong Red Cross. And of course, si Senator Gordon.
Mr. President, please.
Yes.
Under the Bayanihan law, the Office of the President was being required to submit a weekly report to the Senate as well as to the Congress of the Philippines.
We have been doing it.
We did it, Your Honor, for how many weeks? Voluminous records. As the records will bear us out that weekly reports were done under Bayanihan 1 and 2. It was a very tedious task, Mr. President. At the very least, they would have at least cared to read those reports. So we could have avoided this hearing, Your Honor, this daily hearings, Your Honor. We're only on the 5th day, and I think they intend to break the record of the benign investigation for 25 days, Your Honor. We're wasting so much time, effort, in fighting a pandemic, Your Honor. We cannot waste a daily hearing on all these matters, Your Honor.
There's so many things to take care of actually on the home front. And if you keep on calling people to testify there, how can they work? For example, Secretary Galvez, pati paano tayo makatrabaho nito kung nandoon kayo? Well, anyway, I'd tell you why. The reason, it's because election time and they want exposure. And they think that if they come up with certain corruption cases, true or false, they could get the mileage. So the only reason also why we are doing it to them is because they cannot have, Gordon cannot have his cake and eat it too. So, in my, yung tinutumbok niya, sasagot ako. Now, Gordon, itong si Gordon, ginamit niya si Asierto. Asierto was a policeman. Dito dapat police officer itong gagong to eh. He was one of those responsible for the importation of AK-74, AK-47 na pumunta sa kamay ng mga kalaban, NPA. Ganito kagago itong police na to. And you know what? Nung tinatakot niya ito si matagal ko nakilala ko si ito kasi nagsumbong yung mga Chinese businessmen na pinapatawag sila nito ni Asierto and company because of charges of totoo ba raw, involved sila sa charges. Alam mo na tinatakot. So, nung kinuha ko yung records, si Asierto lang ang nagre-report doon against Michael Yang. Kanyang report lang, kanyang dossier, if you may. Siya lang ang nagre-report. So, I knew that he was setting up Michael Yang para for either extortion or outright minsan hulihin nila. Ilan ang nahuli nito ni Asierto na Chinese na kinidnap, nagbayad ng ransom, tapos pinatay pa rin. Yan ang trabaho ni Asierto. He is guilty of treason against the country and a criminal at that. And he is being utilized by Gordon. Kaya Gordon, sumabay ka na kay Asierto. Pareho na kayo, halos pareho na yung style mo. Hindi ba siya din yung tinuturong mastermind ng 13 billion shabu shipment noong July 2018 sa Manila International Container Port at nakalagay sa loob ng abandoned magnetic filters at missing shabu bag and containers na nakita sa Cavite? Namumuliti ka itong si Gordon using itong mga dubious and underworld characters sa naging character na sa police files for committing crimes. Marami itong napatay na ngayon masakit yung nagbigay ng pera tapos patay pa rin. Who's going to report next? Mon, for the longest time, you want to say something? Just tell the people that what we are doing with their money and the efforts
Yes,
to
thank you
spend
po,
it wisely.
Mr. President. I have just a short report about 4 slides. I think mga 2 weeks ago, I've given a fuller report, but just a more recent update on the DTI. DTI po ay isa pong portion agency tumutulong sa trabaho, negosyo, at saka consumer. Dito po sa ngayong report ay yung patungkol sa negosyo. Yung pagtulong, lalo na itong sa pandemya, na nawala ng maraming trabaho, mga na-displace, na-repatriate na OFWs. So we've been doing a lot of assistance up to the barangay level. Pinupuntahan po natin yon. We've reached out to 13,918 barangay to reach out to 154,000 micro SMEs para matulungan sila in terms of training, business assistance, kung ano mga kailangan nila, information materials, market information, and also 890,000 number of individuals provided with information training on various livelihood opportunities. Ngayon, meron ho tayong programa, meron ho tayong maliit na budget, at least nakakatulong pagbigay ng livelihood kits. Ito yung ginagamit to pang negosyo. Yung bilin ninyo noon na magbigay ng kahit paninda sa palengke, 5,000 to 10,000 worth, para at least may pangkabuhayan na siya. In other words, we teach them how to fish. Rather than bigyan natin 10,000, dole out. Kung hindi, itong 10,000, 5,000, 10,000, ibili mong paninda, yung kinita mo doon, pambenta mo ulit kinabukasan, at meron ka ng hanap buhay araw-araw. So, yun po yung sistema natin. And we've been doing this in terms of our livelihood kits. Ganun din po yung programa sa pangkabuhayan sa pagbangon at ginhawa. 26,930 clients assisted, at number of trainings conducted kasi bago bigyan din ng assistance, nagbibigay tayo ng training. 24,000 ang livelihood kits provided. At karamihan po dito, ito po yung mga nakalamidad, nasunugan, nabaha, yung mga bagyo. At ito po yung pinupuntahan na nationwide. Dati ho, walang pondo si DTI dito, pero tinulungan tayo ni Senator Bongo na at least makapag-allocate ng pondo para makatulong sa mga nasalanta ng sakuna. May pahabol pala ako. Mr. President, the other night, we were discussing the need to have a different approach dito sa ating pag-solve sa COVID, hindi lang lockdown. We proposed twice sa IATF na at least i-allow na yung mga vaccinated. I think some senators, congressmen also said, palabasin na natin yung mga vaccinated, lalo na dun sa mga areas na bawal sa ngayon. Ngayon, kunwari, under MECQ, bawal yung mga restaurant na dine-in, bawal yung mga personal care services like salon, barbershops. These are labor-intensive. Itong sector na ito, mga 2 million ang employed sa restaurant, mga dine-in, ang mga salon, mga 400,000. So, nationwide. If you look into NCR lang po, even if you divide it, malaki pa rin, 1.2 million employed. So, these sectors have been closed since August 6, nung nag-ECQ, and after that, nag-MECQ tayo, pero ginawang sarado pa rin siya. And fine, kasi mataas yung kaso nga noon. Unfortunately, tumagan, more than 1 month na. So sabi nga ng mga nagtatrabaho dyan, hindi nga kami mamatay ng COVID, mamatay kami ng gutom, ng hunger. So, ang iniisip po natin, safe reopening, especially during itong MECQ, yung middle ground is para safe. We allow only the vaccinated. Safe sila dito sa mga restricted sectors na to. And we can say na vaccinated na below 65 years old. Kasi pag vaccinated na mas matanda, above 65, delikado pa rin pag tinamaan ng COVID na pwedeng maging severe critical. Pero yung mas bata ay mas malakas. Pero nasa health expert natin kung gusto nilang lagyan ng age. Pero ang importante po, pag vaccinated, ang promise ng vaccine, hindi maging severe and critical. So ito po nakikita nating middle ground as a solution na habang sarado yung sector, at least we allow the vaccinated na pumasok dun sa sector na yun because the principle is hindi sila maging severe at critical kung tumaan sila. At dahil kung effective naman yung mga vaccine na ina-apply natin. And we can pilot test this in NCR, kasi sa NCR, over 50% na ang vaccinated. So I think, at we believe na dahil vaccinated, hindi maging severe critical, hindi magiging, hindi ma-overwhelm yung ating mga ospital. So yun po yung isang nililinis na guideline. Kaya hindi pa ho natin na-finalize yung guideline. But I think it's about time we change our protocol pagdating po dito sa at least allowing the vaccinated. And we've talked to some secretaries, mga kasama natin, and open naman po sila dito sa i-pilot test ito. Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary Galvez, you have some slides.
Yes, please show my slide. Mr. President, Senator Bongo, ES, Secretary Dominguez, my fellow cabinet members, magandang gabi po sa ating mga... Next slide, please. Sir, ang Pilipinas po ay expecting a much bigger volume this September with a steady supply from Sinovac, Pfizer, and US COVAX donation. Production issues of AstraZeneca, Moderna, and Sputnik have been resolved. Na-resolve po ng ating DOF negotiating team under US ECOVEN sa pamumuno po ng ating Secretary Dominguez. So we can expect now a bigger volumes of COVAX with an initial 5.5 million Pfizer and 2 million Sinovac. We also heard that they will also deliver some AstraZeneca in the future. Then Pfizer and Moderna will also begin to scale up their deliveries with expected 5 million deliveries this month each. Ang AstraZeneca rin po ay magde-deliver na sa mga private sector at maganda po ito dahil kasi karamihan po, 80% po napupunta po sa LGU. And then yung issue ng Sputnik at Russian Direct Investment Fund, ito po ay inaantay po ng ating mga LGUs dahil kasi marami na po na over na po ang kanilang inaantay na component number 2, yung second dose. Pero wag po silang mag-alala dahil kasi po yung component 1 can sustain dahil kasi mataas po ang efficacy niya ng 70 to 83%. So darating na po yung 190,000 component as they have promised, and they might begin yung deliveries ng single dose ng Sputnik Light. Also this month. So 1 dose po yun. And then on our vaccination, despite the challenges and constraints, we're still on track. We have received already 54 million doses, and we have already administered 37.8 million doses. Actually, 38 na po yan. And we have already had more than 16 million are now fully vaccinated. Next slide, please. So the Philippines is also expected to receive more than 61 million vaccine for the month of September and October. Kinumbahin po natin. And also, we are now negotiating for next year, for 2022, as directed by Secretary Dominguez. Because we are now negotiating with 4 manufacturers with introduction of reformulated booster. Yung reformulated booster po, tinuik po nila para po makuha yung variant. So parang ito po yung mga next generation na booster. Pero isa lang po ang gagawin na para ma-extend po yung ating efficacy. And then also yung full authorization ng Pfizer and maybe other brands in the future will change our procurement strategies kasi yung mga ating mga LGU at saka mga private sector pwede na po dumiretso. Wala na po tayong magiging MPA. And then number 6, we are recalibrating our focus and expand strategy, giving more allocation now to Region 4A. So sa Region 4A na po tayo mauna, and then Region 3, Region 7, Region 6, Region 10, Region 11, and other search area as directed by the President. Then, marami pong mga epidemiologists sa US and other countries, sinasabi nila na vaccine alone cannot stop Delta. And we need to increase prevention strategy, the effective masking, the ventilation, and massive vaccination. Mr. President, inano po na namin talaga na dapat yung people's participation kasi talagang kung hindi po susunod yung mga tao sa atin, kahit paano gagawin po natin, talagang mahirapan po tayo. So we encourage po, Mr. President, with your influence with the massa, na talagang po natin, encourage po natin talaga na they have to really protect themselves and their family. Then next slide, last slide. So ito po yung darating na mga bakuna sa atin po ngayong September. So Sinovac po, nag-commit na po tayo, may kontrata na po tayo, at ito po ay inassume na po na darating yung 12 million. And then yung Pfizer, ito po yung ating procured na 40 million. Ito po yung kanilang last delivery for the last of the quarter. At sa darating po mga buwan, 10 million each na po ang bibigay po nila. And then Moderna, nagkaroon po tayo ng negotiation and also the follow-up of DFA at saka po ni Secretary Lorenzana at saka ni Ambassador Babes Romualdez, tatasan po ng from 3 to 5 million. And then as a Seneca, meron na po tayo na-receive kanina na 500,000 at may darating pa po na 600,000 coming September 13. And then Sputnik, at yung po Sputnik, nangako po sila na magbibigay po ng 1 million. And another donation, most likely sa Japan, another AstraZeneca 1 million. And sa COVAX, they assured us to have at least 8 to 10 million this September. So October po, 10 million sa Sinovac, 10 million sa Pfizer, another 3 million or 5 million sa Moderna, and then AstraZeneca, another 1 million, sa Sputnik, another 1 million, and then another donation from another country, and 3 to 5 million to 3 to 5 millions na sa COVAX. A total of 61 million, Mr. President. At yun po, pagka nakita po natin na yung 61 million po na yun, pwede na po ito siguro kung dumating yung 61 million, pwede na po tayong magkaroon ng tinatawag na expecting na general population na po tayo this coming October. And in-announce na po namin para malaman po ng mga probinsya na yung A1 to 5 ay open na po effective September 6. So yung mga nasa mga barrio at saka mga nasa probinsya outside of NCR, even though they don't have the surge, ay pwede na po magbakuna ng A1 to 5 po, Mr. President. That's all, Mr. President, at maraming salamat.
Secretary Anyo, are you ready?
Magandang gabi po, Mr. President. Wala naman po akong maiulat na sapagkat kabibigay ko lamang po the other day, except yung sa NCR po ay nasa 98.39% na yung pagbibigay natin ng ayuda. So that means po ay out of the 11.256 billion, 11.075 billion po ang naipamigay na nating ayuda at ang tumanggap ay 11 million sa ating mga kababayan. So, yan lang naman po muna ang may bibigay ko sapagkat yung iba po ay na-report ko the other day, Mr. President. Thank you po.
Before we go to the other panelists, I would like to ask if there is a representative of Boy de la Peña, Secretary. Ano yan, Boy? Ivermectin clinical trials, Boy.
Po. Well, I just would like to make a few general statements, Mr. President. First of all, tama po kayo, maraming trials na ginagawa sa iba't ibang lugar pero wala pang conclusive results na magsasabi na ganito o ganoon, ano. At iba-iba po kasi ang mga protocols na ginamit nila doon sa mga trials sa iba't ibang bansa. Kaya yung pong Philippine ivermectin trials ay justified naman dahil varying yung mga results in different countries. Pangatlo po, yung Philippine trials natin ay internationally peer-reviewed at aligned po sa International Clinical Trial Consortium for Ivermectin. So, meron po tayong confidence about the methodology that we are using. Yung clinical trials po, nung una naming binalita ito, ang estimate namin ay 8 months to do, which is actually relatively shorter na yon compared to our other clinical trials. Ito po ay dahil magkakaroon ng simultaneous recruitment at saka short duration lang yung treatment. Kaya lang po talagang naging official start namin August pa, middle of August. Kaya kung 8 months ang bibilangin, aabot pa ho yun ng Abril. Pero ang report naman po ng mga gumagawa ng clinical trials, kung simultaneous ang recruitment at dahil maigsi lang yung duration ng treatment, ay baka po within 6 months matapos. By December, makakaroon na tayo ng analysis. Ang susunod po itong yung pong sinabing nasaan ba yun? Yung pong mga international bodies like WHO, yung National Institutes of Health sa Amerika, yung kanilang Center for Disease Control, ay wala po sa kanila na nag-endorse ng ivermectin, maliban lang po sa paggamit nito sa clinical trials. At tama po kayo, Ginoong Pangulo, na ang mga doktor naman po ay base sa kanilang professional judgment can prescribe ivermectin, although dito po sa atin sa Pilipinas ang approved indication ay para doon sa treatment ng yun pong mga parasitic infections at yung tinatawag na river blindness. Pero ano naman po, for human use naman po yung approval ng FDA. So, tama po kayo, it's up to the doctor kung gusto nilang i-prescribe yon kahit na off-label indication. Ibig sabihin, hindi yun talaga yung indication dun sa approved product na nandirito. And basically yung po, Ginoong Pangulo, at siguro very quickly lang papakita ko itong present namin sa slide na while several clinical trials are already being conducted in many countries on ivermectin, a local study is still going to be useful. The methodology that we are following would be a double-blind study. Actually po, bukod dun sa control group na placebo, ibig sabihin nun wala naman laman yung capsule lang iinumin. Yung pong dalawang grupo naman, yung isa ay bibigyan ng 400 mcg per kilogram per day, once a day for 5 days. At yung isa naman ay medyo mas malakas, 600 mcg per kilogram per day, once a day for 5 days. Yung pong per kilogram na yon ay base sa timbang. At ang plano pong participants ay 1,464 na magkakombinasyon na doon yung asymptomatic at symptomatic patients. Pero hindi kasama, wala naman po yung, hindi with non-severe COVID-19. At na-identify na rin po yung mga study sites dito. Actually, yung mga quarantine centers po, 4 yung binanggit dito sa Ateneo, sa Lasal, sa UP, at meron pang isang quarantine center na binanggit. Next slide, please. Yun nga po, there are 75 registered clinical trials on the use of ivermectin around the world. Okay, and there is also an international ivermectin consortium led by Dr. Andrew Hill of the University of Liverpool. And here, the Philippine Ivermectin Clinical Trials Project team has become part of this international consortium. And so this consortium is conducting a combined analysis of all the randomized trials of ivermectin worldwide. So the international team, pagka po pinagsama-sama yan, ay magkakaroon ng around 32,734 participants. Based on the latest data, there is still insufficient evidence on the ivermectin in COVID-19 treatment, thus the need for further clinical trials. And the gathered data is still inconclusive, given the high risk of bias. And the international team also reported that some trials are completed but not reported, which leads to distorted results in the meta-analysis. Next slide, please. Ito po yung mga lugar na meron tayo mga isinasagawang clinical trials. Siguro po banggitin ko lang na ang pinakamaraming trials na 10 bansa ay ang Iran, 15 clinical trials ang ginagawa nila. Ang India, 11 trials. Egypt, 11 trials. Bangladesh, 6 trials. Brazil, 5. US, 4. Spain, 4 din. Colombia, 4. Argentina, 3. Pakistan, 3. Yung iba po ay 2 lang o isang trial. Tayo ay kasama dun sa isang trial lang, katulad din ng Malaysia at Thailand. Next slide, please. Now, ano po ang ating update? Yung project team natin is doing a revision of protocol to consider the latest developments on the trials done internationally. So, imbes na September 15 ho nakalagay dito, actually October 15 na yung estimate nila na talagang simula ng participants recruitment. The IBM capsule that will be used is now being compounded at the UP Manila College of Pharmacy. Kasi po kailangang maging magkamukha yung ivermectin na yung capsule na may ivermectin at saka yung placebo na walang ivermectin, at saka yan ay para masiguro natin na tama nga yung composition. At yung iba pa pong ginagawa nila ngayon in preparation, yung clinical trial management system ay ina-establish nila, tapos yung project team ay nag-coordinate na sa mga LGUs. At narito nga po yung mga identified centers: Ateneo Quarantine Facility, Lasal Quarantine Facility, UP Diliman Quarantine Facility, at ang Makati Science High School Quarantine Facility. Next slide, please. Okay, so nung pong budget hearing sa House of Representatives noong September 1 ay tinanong kami at inireport din namin ito na yun nga ang reasonable estimate ng simula talaga ng trials ay October 15. And hanggang ngayon ay meron pang review na ginagawa yung ethics board. So hinihintay pa natin ang approval niyan, pati yung sa technical panel. I think Dr. Montoya last time mentioned that the study sites are already identified, and yung pong pondo ay nailipat na sa UP Manila. At yung study po na ito, kung ang nag-request ay ang Department of Health, ay sila din po ang magdedesisyon kung ano ang action na gagawin pag lumabas na yung mga resulta ng study. So yun lamang po, Ginoong Pangulo, at ang masasabi ko, kahit na-delay yung pagsisimula, ay mapapaiksi naman yung duration dahil dun sa simultaneous recruitment at saka dun sa mas maigsing duration ng treatment. So ito lamang po, Ginoong Pangulo. Siguro po sa susunod ay magre-report kami tungkol sa iba namang mga ginagawa at nagawa na ng DOST tungkol sa COVID-19. Marami po salamat.
Thank you, Secretary De Peña. Who else would want to, Atty. Benabalo? Penor.
Magandang gabi po, mahal na Pangulo, kay Senator Bongo at sa lahat po ng mga senador. Iiklihan ko lang po, Mr. President, no? Hindi na ho ako papakita ng slide. Sa Metro Manila po ngayon ay maski na ho tumataas. Ito po, sige, ito na ho yung slide. There are 36,978 active cases as of now, Mr. President. At next please. At sa ngayon po ay talagang ina-isolate po namin yung talagang mga may sakit, no? Kung kaya't makikita po ninyo sa mga munisipyo, sa cities, halos 68% po ang mga isolation facilities, no? Yung iba po ay nasa hotel, ang mga hotel po halos papuno na, 92%. At ito po sa national na pinapatakbo, yung temporary treatment ay 71%. But ito po ay very fluid, nawawala after 2 weeks tapos nagkakaroon naman. Ang pati-trace po namin ngayon ng bawat nakakasakit ay 1:11 na ang nati-trace po. Next please. Ito po ang granular lockdown sa nasa Metro Manila ngayon. Higit kumulang 7,300 at siyam ang mga pamilyang pong talagang naapektado na talagang naka-lockdown po ngayon sila. Nakahiwalay po talaga sila. Sila ay pinapakain ng LGU. At nagpapasalamat po kami sa national government, sa NEDA, dahil makikishare daw sila sa pagpapakain. So 1 week po ang LGU and then 1 week po ang national government. So ayan po, broken down na po yan, no? Sa kalye, sa streets. Pero overall po, it's 7,309 families ngayon po sa Metro Manila. Next please. Kung titignan po natin, ito na po yung bakunado, no? So sa ngayon po, halos 57% na ang nababakunahan ng 2 dose sa Metro Manila. But in 1 month, Mr. President, dahil yung pong first dose, magkakaroon ng second dose, ang tansya namin na magkaka-second dose ay higit kumulang 78% or 77.97%. Ito po yung mga nagpabakuna ng Gamaleya, Pfizer, Sinovac, Moderna, Sinopharm at Janssen. At of course, yung naman po mga naiwan na Astra, which is 3 months, siguro ho by December 9 ay 87.5% na, no, ng total population ay nabakunahan na. Next please. At hindi lang po yun, ito po yung mga nagbabakuna na maski na hindi na sa kanila. Next please. So mga binabakunahan ng mga LGUs po na ito ay higit kumulang 35,000 na. Next. Okay. Pila ka panghuli po, ito po yung resolusyon na sinasabi po kanina ni Secretary Mon Lopez. Dahil po highly vaccinated na ang Metro Manila, nagpasa po ang lahat ng alkalde ng Metro Manila na baka pwede yung pag-aralan na ng IATF. It's an interagency and interdisciplinary, no? Ibig sabihin po, hindi lang mga doktor, kasama na po ekonomista, mga international policy sa mga ibang mundo po, mga nauna sa ating magpabakuna, kung po pwede na bang ang 2 bakunado ay baka po pwede magkaroon po ng mga activities na ho. Kamukha po sa sinabi ni Secretary Mon Lopez. Pero tama kayo, Mr. Mahal na Pangulo, mahirap talagang balansehin ito dahil of course buhay ang pinag-uusapan po dito. Kaya mas minamabuti po namin sana igawa ng pag-aaral kaagad ito nang sa ganun ay maski maging pilot po ang Metro Manila. So we thought it prudent na ito'y idaan sa tamang proseso, tamang pag-aaral at sa tamang institusyon which is the IATF. Yun lang po, Mr. President. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Chairman Abalos. Carlo, you have something to report?
Yes, Mr. President, maayong gabi kanimo and kay Senator Bongo at sa mga kasamahan sa kabinete, PS Medialdea. I-report ko po, Mr. President, at sa ibang mga talk to the people after this, yung mga accomplishments ng mga tanggapan o ahensya na under sa Office of the President. So ngayong araw na ito, i-report ko po, next slide, yung tungkol naman sa isang tanggapan o ahensya, which is yung Anti-Red Tape Authority under your office. Isang napakagandang programa na nailukad ng ARTA ay yung National Effort for Harmonization of Efficient Measures of Interrelated Agencies or NEHMAYA. Alinsunod ito sa utos niyo po na tanggalin na yung mga redundant processes, pabilisin ang ease of doing of business. Kaya yung ARTA with partner agencies launched itong NEHMAYA para to cut government processes by 52% within 52 weeks. Yan po yung target. And the lead coordinating dito sa NEHMAYA program na to ay yung tanggapan ni ES Medialdea at syempre yung ARTA at yung aking tanggapan po. Yung DICT naman po ay tumutulong sa atin sa digital infrastructure para sa automation ng mga government services. Next slide. Gaya ng sinabi ko, Mr. President, 52% reduction sa mga redundant processes in 52 weeks. Ito'y alinsunod din po sa speeding up ng realization ng socio-economic agenda ng inyong administrasyon. May 5 sectors po na tinarget ang NEHMAYA program at ito po yung connectivity, telco, food and pharma, and logistics. Yung NEHMAYA program is also part of the mandate ng ARTA under Republic Act 11032 to adopt a whole-of-government approach in streamlining government services, pati na rin sa Admin Order number 23 na pinirmahan niyo po, which is eliminating overregulation to promote efficiency of government processes. So dito sa telecoms sector po, ARTA along with key agencies signed a joint memorandum circular to streamline the permitting process ng telecom towers. At ito po ay nag-result sa pag-release ng more than 26,000 pending permits sa telecom sector. So napabilis po natin ang pag-release ng mga permits ng telecom sector, and this is in fulfillment sa panawagan niyo po to improve internet and speedy internet connectivity at internet connection sa buong bansa. Just to further elaborate dun sa telecom sector, nagka-release tuloy ng 26,636 pending permits sa telecom sector. In fact, dahil sa ARTA, over 35,000 permits so far have been released na-expedite. No? At including dyan, yung 8,510 permits, licenses, clearances, and certifications automatically approved or released by numerous government agencies from the period 2019 to 2021. Dahil sa lahat ng mga reforms na to, Mr. President, next slide, tumaas po ang ating ranking sa 2020 World Bank Doing Business Report. And we jumped from number 124 ay naging 95th na po tayo with a score of 62.8. So in a matter of 1 year, we jumped 29 notches pataas. And significantly improved dito yung protecting minority investors, getting credit, dealing with construction permits, and starting a business in the Philippines. So for an agency na bago lamang na-create under your watch, Mr. President, marami pong nagawa na. At again, this is in fulfillment sa utos niyo po na to simplify things here in the Philippines. Especially to cut and eliminate red tape in government. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Secretary Nograles. Last but not the least, always the closing remarks to be rendered by Secretary Sal Panelo.
Magandang gabi po, Pangulo, Senator Christopher Bongo at sa mga kasama natin sa kabinete. Maliban po sa pasasalamat ng mga alkalde, mga barangay kapitan, doon po sa mga nadaan natin, pati gobernador dyan sa Tarlac, Pangasinan, yan po sa Bulacan, sa Pampanga, sa Negros Occidental. Gusto pong ipaabot sa inyo, Ginoong Pangulo, na sila daw po ay kontento sapagkat lahat ng mga ipinahatid nila sa pamamagitan ng iyong lingkod at doon sa lahat ng mga cabinet members na tinawagan natin, natugunan lahat po yung kanilang mga pangangailangan, lahat ng mga problema nila sa bakuna, yung po sa mga farm-to-market roads, yung problema nila doon sa mga mega infrastructure na akala nila natenga pero hindi. Madalit sabi, Ginoong Pangulo, lahat po na inilabas nila, tinubunan kaagad karakarakan ng lahat ng mga membro ng kabinete at sila po yung nagpapasalamat. At kaugnay naman po doon sa inyong pagtanggap bilang kandidato vice presidente, sila po ay pinapaabot din na nalulugod sila at kayo daw po ay susundan nila kahit na sino ang sabihin nyo, i-endorse niyo kung sino ang magiging Pangulo sapagkat naniniwala po sila na para sa kanila, kailangan ipagpatuloy ang mga sinimulan yung programa. Maliban pa po doon, ibig ko lang pong idagdag na yung pong posisyon ninyo sa kaso ng COA with respect sa Red Cross, kayo po you're definitely on the right track sapagkat napakalinaw naman po ng saligang batas, specifically Article 9D ng saligang batas that empowers and gives the Commission on Audit the duty to review and to audit even non-governmental organizations who receive regular subsidy from the government. Napakaklaro po ng Article 9D ng saligang batas. Maliban pa po dyan, alam naman natin na ito'y tumanggap ng bilyon galing sa PhilHealth. At taon-taon, ito po ay tumatanggap din ng lottery draw para sa kanilang mga relief distribution dyan sa PCSO. Maliban pa po doon sa mga special lottery draws para isuportahan yung mga blood programs. Kaya masyado klaro, in fact, logic will dictate, napaka-basic naman ho yan sa lahat ng mga law students, na pag ang pera ng gobyerno ay natanggap ng anumang ahensya ng gobyerno o kahit na hindi ahensya ng gobyerno, talagang may kapangyarihan po na pumasok ang gobyerno diyan at ang Commission on Audit. Kaya hindi po kailangan na pag-usapan yun sapagkat masyado namang klaro yun. Now, ang tanong po, sapagkat nabanggit po ninyo kanina na si Michael Aguinaldo ay nagsalita na sinusuportahan niya yung posisyon ni Senator Gordon na palaro kapangyarihan ang COA. Sinabi niya po talaga yun. Meron siyang statement doon. At in fact, gumawa nga po ako ng memorandum address sa inyo at gumawa na rin ako ng statement na mali siya doon. Sapagkat, gaya ng sinabi ko, yung Article 9D, maliwanag na maliwanag. Ngayon, tanong, anong pwede natin gawin kay COA? Aba, pwede po tayo mag-file ng petition for mandamus compelling COA to perform its duty to audit itong non-governmental organization like Philippine National Red Cross. At tama rin po yung sinasabi nyo na pag hindi ginawa ni Michael Aguinaldo, yung head ng COA, yung kanyang tungkulin, dereliction of duty po yan. In fact, because of that provision that says the PRC has to submit yearly yung pong accomplishment in financial condition, that empowers the president, in fact, to look over the financial condition and seeing irregularities, therefore, talagang pwede siyang makialam po doon. Yan po nasa tamang, kayo po nasa tamang posisyon pagdating sa puntulian.
Thank you for the very enlightening opinion from a learned person. So, ikaw na bahala dyan kay Gordon pati kay Aguinaldo pag ayaw nilang sumunod.
Yes, Mr. President.
So, I think everybody has, is there anybody who would like to say something?
Mr. President,
Yes,
aside from, of course, the Constitution is very, very clear. You have the auditing code itself, which is PD 1445. The provision is very, very specific. Any transaction involving public interest and public funds has to be traced and audited, whether it is public or private.
Yes.
That's reflected in the audit code, which I hope has not been repealed at all. This is PD 1445. Thank you.
with the constitutional mandate, actually, I'm sure Aguinaldo and Gordon should know where they are now. So I hope they'd stop invoking that phrase about being independent. On that note, I would like to say thank you everybody for taking time to be with us and to explain to the people what we are doing for them, and more importantly, gaya nung kay Secretary Anyo, na alam nila yung pera kung saan pumupunta at saan magkano ang nagastos ngayon. So with that, I say maraming salamat sa inyong pagtangkilig ba yan? In Tagalog. Maraming salamat at magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.